Hi friends, it's Deanna here today, and today I am so super excited to be bringing to you the Deanna pattern. This pattern is fantastic. It's a dream come true for me. All the details, all the things, all the different options, obsessed. So today we're going to do part 1 of 2 because like I said, there's so many options on it. So today we're going to be doing a knee length dress option with long sleeves, and then tune in next time for a square neck option. Let's get started. I can't wait. All right, we're gonna go ahead and get started. I have liner and outer for my back, liner and outer for my front, long sleeve skirt, first middle tier, like the first tier and then the bottom tier. And so we're gonna get started with the bodice first. So as you can see, I'm using the same fabric for the liner and the outer. I would recommend that you either stick with something similar as your fabric, stick with the same weight as your fabric or similar. And then also I would recommend that if it's a see-through fabric, if it's something you can be able to see, you don't want to put a print underneath it because you might be able to see it through. Since this one is dark, I'm going to stick with the same exact fabric because I had enough of it. But if you had to use something different, what I recommend, what I've done before is I get like a double brush poly or something like that, that is a color close to my skin tone. And then I use that as a liner. Or if I'm doing something like this, I would use a black, because it would just blend in. So that's what I would recommend for a liner. I am using a rib knit for this option. And I think that's got a really nice, it's going to be a really nice look. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to grab our back piece and we're going to place it right side up on my mat, and I'm going to grab my top and my front and put it right sides together. I'm lining up liner with liner. So if this is your liner piece, it's liner back, liner front. And then I'm going to do the same thing with the outer front and outer back at the shoulders. I'm going to be using a serger for this sew because it is a knit fabric, but if you don't have a serger, you can just use a stretch stitch on your sewing machine for it. All right, so since I am doing the sleeve option, I am going to go ahead and move on to doing the neckline. Also, I am doing the scoop neckline. The square neckline is going to be done a little bit different. So if you're doing a square neckline, make sure you tune into my next video, which is where I'll be working on the square neckline. And if you're doing flutter sleeves, which will include the burrito method, make sure you tune into that next video as well, because that next video will have the flutter sleeves. So for this option though, I'm grabbing my liner and my outer and I'm placing them right sides together at the neck area. And I'm going to be sewing this neck area together. So I'm going to match up here those shoulder seams. And then the whole neck should match up evenly because it is the same pattern. So the same pattern piece that you cut out. So they should be a 1-to-1 ratio. So they should nicely match up nicely. Now, some people find it easier to do this part on a sewing machine with a stretch stitch so that you have a closer feel for it and you can trim seam allowances for when you turn. I find that I have no issues sewing it with the serger. I like just the quickness of a serger and the smoothness of a serger, so I just do this part with my serger as well, and I don't mind having a little bit of the seam allowance of the serger. So this is up to you if you want to do it with the sewing machine, if you feel like you want it to be closer and tighter. I'm gonna go sew that. All right, now if you did this part with a sewing machine, you can trim the seam allowances here, and then we're going to turn it right side out by fitting one into the other through the neck area. All right, and the bodice is coming together. If you're doing the flutter sleeve, you will move on to doing the burrito method to attach your sleeves. But since we're not doing the flutter sleeve, we're doing long sleeve, we're going to move on to sewing the sides together. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab our front and back outer and grab them together, and our front and back liner and grab it together. And we're going to sew those side seams right sides together. All right, let me show you here. See how the neck, this is the neck area here. If you were to open it up like this, there is the neck hole. It goes all the way through. We're doing the two back and front that would right sides together, and then back and front that would right sides together. I know it kind of sounds confusing, but as you do it, you'll be able to tell what it is that he wants you to do. So then I'm gonna go sew that up. Let's prep our sleeve. This is a long sleeve, or if you're doing a quarter sleeve, if you're doing the shirring portion, this is what I'm going to be working on right now. I'm gonna grab one sleeve. Now, if you did not mark your pattern, as you can see, mine is all marked. Our sleeve pattern piece has all the markings on it. It's got the back markings where these two little notches, I marked them here. It's got the gather from and to right here, these two little lines, which I marked right here. And then it's got the center line here, which I marked right here. Now the front, I didn't mark the front because I marked the back, so I don't need to mark the front as well. So if you don't have those markings, you can go ahead and place your pattern piece on top of your sleeve now and mark those pieces, because the first thing we're going to do is we're going to start from this point to this point and put in a basting stitch together. I'm just doing a long straight stitch, leaving a tail here at the beginning, leaving a tail at the end, so then I can gather this to fit into my arm side when I go to attach it. At the bottom, we're going to first, we're going to hem our bottom of our sleeve, and then we're going to go ahead and give it and start shirring. So I'm going to go ahead and get this prepared. If you need help, I'm going to kind of tell you how to shirr the sleeve, but if you need like detail help on how to do the shirring method, we do have a detailed video here on our channel where it shows you exactly how to do shirring. So I'm going to go ahead and hem that and put in a gathering stitch here at the top, and then I'll come back to show you the shirring. For hemming, I used a cover stitch, which does a really nice double or triple stitch and finishes it up on the back. But if you don't have a cover stitch, you can use a straight stitch on your sewing machine. I mean, a stretch stitch on your sewing machine. You can also use a triple stitch on your sewing machine. It's one of my favorites for hemming when I don't use my cover stitch. All right, so I put in that gathering stitch here at the top, and that will come in handy when we're going to go sew it to our dress. And now we're going to work on the shirring part at the bottom. There's a couple of methods that are presented on the pattern. You can do it with some shirring tape, but I'm going to be doing it with just regular elastic thread. I couldn't think of the name. Let me show you. Here's the elastic thread already wound in my bobbin. You can get it kind of like this. It's just a very thin elastic. It's stretchy, and you can wind it on your bobbin. You could do it by hand by simply just like rolling it on, because you don't want to stretch it super tight. But if you have a sewing machine that you can control the speed when it's filling your bobbin, you can actually do it on your sewing machine by turning your speed all the way to low, and then it will wind it slowly. That's what I did with this one, and it does a really good job. I didn't know I could do it on the machine, so when I found that out, I was mind blown. But you have to make sure that you slow the winding process down. If you don't, then it's not gonna work correctly. So here it is, ready to go. This will go in my bobbin, and then on the top, I'm gonna be using regular thread, and I'm gonna show you how I'm gonna set my settings. So for here, to mark your fabric, you're gonna place it right side up. I'm going to go 2 inches from the edge of the hem. So there's 1, there's 2. And then I'm going to mark my fabric. Now, you can, if you want the gathering to start higher up or farther down, depending on how much ruffle you want at the bottom, this is all up to you. But for the pattern, we're using 2 inches. Now, you won't be able to see this line, and I think I'm barely gonna be able to see it myself, but you're marking your fabric work, because essentially shirring is just sewing straight lines. I think I'll be able to see it a little bit when I'm sewing it, but I'm gonna have to look real close. I'm going to be doing lines that are 1/2 inch apart from each other. That's how my shirring is gonna go. But if you want them to be a little bit farther apart from each other, you can do that. This is all up to you. This is how you make your pattern your own. You can make it wider, thicker lines. You can make them smaller lines. You can do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, however many lines you want to do. On the pattern, we're going to be doing 5 lines. So that was 2. I'm gonna do 5 lines. All right, we're changing our methods because I cannot see that line because I've got dark fabric. So I'm gonna use pins. I'm gonna have to remove them as I go. If you have white, you have chalk, maybe that would work. All right, I'll just have to measure as I go when I'm sewing it on. It's all right. I'll do it on my sewing machine and I'll show you how I'm gonna do it on there. So I'm gonna go ahead and put in those 5 straight stitch lines with the to shear. All right, so I'm gonna set my stitch length at a 5. So it's just a straight stitch. The length is a 5. And then I'm gonna change my tension. I like to put it somewhere between a 7 and an 8. That's my tension. My thread at the top is the same, just regular thread on it. And then here at the bottom, I'm gonna change my bobbin and put in that elastic bobbin. Now, as you're putting the bobbin through, you want to make sure it's wound, and you want to place it like a P, like you would do your regular bobbin. Put it through, and then this is very important. You need to make sure that it catches on your tension disc. See how it's caught? Oop, now I pulled it out, but you can tell that it's caught because if you try to pull it back, you can feel that it's caught. And you want to make sure that it is caught, because if it's not going to work correctly. So now we're going to grab our thread and pull our elastic bobbin thread to the back. All right, so there it is, and now we're ready to shear. All right, so as you can remember, here was where I started my 2 inches from the top. And because I usually would be much easier if you had the lines there, but I don't have the lines because my fabric is too dark. But we're just gonna get started. I'm just gonna follow my pins. Now when I get to the end, I just lift my needle, pull up just a little bit, and then turn. But look at how already it's got, here's the elastic thread and how it's already kind of gathering it up. I'm going to go down a 1/2 inch, which is how far I'm going with my spacing. And I don't have lines, so I'm just going to put my end of my stitch about just a tiny bit farther away from my foot, of the edge of my foot, just like about, I don't know, just a tiny bit. You can measure here. Here's a seam gauge from the needle to the outside of my foot is about a 1/2 inch. So that's what I'm going to be guiding myself with to do the next 4 rows, because we're doing 5 rows. I'm not pulling, I'm not stretching, I'm just sewing straight lines. Get to the end and do the same thing, and now I'm going to continue that for the next few rows. Now I'm going from the other side, as you can see, so I got to measure my 1/2 inch this way. Okay, and so then obviously I have to kind of eyeball it and make sure, because I'm not drawing any lines. All right, there's my 5 lines, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I'm going to do the same on the other one. Look at how pretty they look from the back and from the front. And we're going to give it a little steam to shrink it up even more, but I love that. Now when you're done with that, you may want to take this out, put in your regular bobbin or whatever, and then change your tension back to what it was supposed to be, because you don't want to leave your tension messed up and then go to sew something and forget. I've done that before. All right, so like I said, once you finish with that, you can give your sleeve a little steam. And it just shrinks that shirring even up even more. So it's all nice and tight, and it's gonna give you such a cute look. I love shirring so much. It's so pretty. All right, so now once that's done, to finish up the sleeve, if you did not hem already, you would hem, and then you would match them up right here at the raw edges. Now, you could hem after, and then that way you don't have to worry about the serger tail, because I'll just have to tuck it in when we're done. But if you wanted to sew it on the round first and then hem, you can do that as well. It's up to you. So we're just sewing the sleeve right sides together at the outer edges, because we're going to sew it onto our bodice as an inset sleeve. Now, if you are planning on doing pockets, we're going to move on to show you how to do your pocket. I'm only going to do one pocket. I don't love pockets on knit dresses. I know. I don't know why. So sometimes I just do one pocket because I feel like that's all I need anyway, if I'm even going to use a pocket. So I'm grabbing this middle tier, and I've got my pattern piece right here, and I'm gonna mark where my pocket is gonna go. I'm gonna line it up. So I'm marking one side if I'm only doing one pocket. If I'm doing two pockets, I'm gonna mark both sides. But then I'm gonna grab my corresponding other side of my skirt, and what you're going to do is you're going to match it right sides together, because you want to mark the side that's going to have the pocket. This is the side with the pocket. So that's the one I'm going to mark, right? Because they're going to face each other. The pocket's going to be on the same side. So you don't want to attach it to the wrong side if you're only doing one pocket. Now, if you're doing both pockets, of course, you're going to mark all 4 spots. Since I'm only doing one pocket, I've got 2 pieces of pocket pouch. And I'm going to grab one of them, and I'm going to put it on this side, starting at that point that I marked along the side. And you want it to be pointing down and right sides together. And I'm going to sew this side here. And then on the other piece where I marked it, would be on the other side. I'm going to grab the other piece of pocket. And again, I'm going to place it right sides together, facing down. And I'm going to sew on this side. All right, so I'm gonna go and sew these up. So some people prefer to do this part here with a sewing machine and go straight stitch, sewing it as a straight stitch, and that kind of gives you a little bit more movement. I just do it with my serger, so I just go and sew it up with my serger. That's just me. And so I'm gonna go ahead and sew those on, and while I'm at it, I'm going to sew up the sleeve sides. Now, as I mentioned, if you do it this way where you hem first and then serge, you'll have this little tail here. What I like to do is I tuck that over the seam allowance, and then I go on my sewing machine and just do a simple, ooh, I didn't put bobbin thread in here yet. Remember I said that you make sure you put the bobbin thread back in, and I didn't. Okay, then I put it right over the seam allowance, and I do a zigzag stitch right over it. And that tacks it down. And now that little notch right there is tacked down. You don't even see it anymore. And there it is. Super simple. So now we've got our sleeves are finished and ready to be sewn in. If we turn our bodice right side out, here's our bodice. You see it right there. Now what we're going to do is we want to stitch our sleeves to our arm side here. So we're going to turn our sleeve. I'm going to turn it right side out. And then I'm going to actually turn my bodice inside out. So the outer is going to be on the inside. The liner is going to be on the outside, because we're going to match up let me make sure. We're going to match up the right side of the bodice of the outer to the right side of the sleeve. That's what's going to touch. Now make sure that your sleeve, this is my back. This is my back here. So this is going to be for this. So yeah, the right side, make sure. Yeah, because you want the right side touching. So the right side of my back wants to touch the right side of my back bodice. So this one goes here. So I'm gonna fit it right in. And I'm gonna match up this bottom raw edge with the bottom raw edge of the arm side. Now remember, I'm matching right side of the bodice outer with the right side of the sleeve. So this is the bodice outer here, and that's the right side. This is the bodice outer back piece, and so that's why I'm matching this back pieces with the back and their right sides together. This up here is the liner, so don't forget that, because the thing is my outer and liner are the same color, so I don't want you to get confused. So that's why I'm telling you again. Here's the shoulder seam at the top, and I'm gonna match that up with the shoulder seam spot that I marked here on my bodice. Make sure I grab the right one. Gather stitching, shoulder point here at the top, match that up right here. And here's where the gathering comes in handy. I'm going to match up right sides together all the way up to that first gathering point. No stretching, nothing. We're just matching it up straight all the way to that first gathering point. There's the gathering point. And then we're going to do on the other side, the front side, the same thing. Match it up together, right sides together, all the way to that first gathering point. So then when I get here to the gathering point, I'm going to pull the stitch and gather so that my sleeve fits into my arm side. It's not a whole ton of gathering, but there's some gathering here, and so then you'll have that gathering here at the top of the sleeve. And you'll have that like pretty gather shoulder effect. And then I'm gonna go ahead and sew it all the way around and do the same on the other side. So now I'm gonna go sew that on, but I'm gonna put it to the side because I'm also going to show you how to put my skirts together, because once our sleeves are put on and our skirts are put together, then we'll sew it all together and it'll become our dress. All right, so here I have my one-sided pocket. As you can see, here's my hip area, and I've got my other side of my pocket, and we're gonna face them right sides together here at the pocket area. And if you don't have a pocket, you're going to have a straight line. I'm going to show you on the other side where I don't have a pocket, but I'm going to match the pockets right sides together like so. Again, this is another part that's easier done with a sewing machine. You can sew right here at this corner, go down, turn over, and then clip that corner. So it's got a nice seam here. I just do it with my serger, and I go down and around and go all the way around. And as I come at this corner here, I just kind of pull it down and I kind of go straight. So that's what I'm going to do. On this other side is just straight. And then for the next tier is going to be just the same, right sides together at those edges. If you're not quite sure which is the top and which one's the bottom, you want to make sure you use your pattern piece, as I just did, to make sure that I lined them up correctly, because it does have a little bit of a shape to it. So I want to make sure that I line up the sides correctly. All right, let's go sew that up. As I get here to the corner of my pocket, I kind of pull it down and go around it, kind of moving it around as I go. And then I just go around the pocket. When I get here to the bottom, I want to make sure that they all match up. And then here, kind of turn it. Then I make sure I didn't leave any gaps behind on my pocket. All right, so here is our bodice completed. I've got my top, and I can pull out this basting stitch for my shoulder gathering here, and that is ready to go. So I'll sew on the skirt to this bottom piece. These sleeves are so stinking gorgeous. Okay, I'm gonna put it aside. Now my skirt pieces, here's my one with the pocket. This is my middle tier, my first tier. And I have this notch here for the front, for the one of the pieces. I marked it, that's my middle. I'm gonna mark it here at the front as well. You know what, I'm gonna do a little notch with my scissors so I know exactly where the middle of my skirt will be, because what we're going to do is we're going to put in a gathering stitch, and we're going to gather that tier to fit our waist right here. Now I like to, if my skirt is going to be heavy, if I'm doing a maxi, I like to gather with clear elastic, which I have a video here on our channel on how to gather with clear elastic. But because this is a fully lined bodice, it'll have more strength. The reason why I like to gather with clear elastic if my skirt is going to be too heavy is because if there's a more weight on the skirt than there is tension on the bodice, it will pull the bodice down and droop it, make the dress droop. So if you're doing a maxi and it's very heavy at the bottom, you want to put some clear elastic here at the waist to help you stabilize the waist. But because this is a lined bodice, because I'm doing a knee length, I'm not going to put the clear elastic. So all I'm doing is I'm going to gather with a straight stitch, just like I did my shoulders. I'm going to gather this to fit this bodice here. And then down here at the bottom, what we're going to do is we're going to grab the next layer. And I also put clips on this layer to kind of remind me where my halves are here and what the top is, because this is the top of my skirt. I want to attach the top of my skirt to the bottom of my other tier. So what I'll do is I'll put in a gathering stitch here at the top, and this is going to get gathered to fit this layer here. Okay, so I'm going to put in a gathering stitch here and a gathering stitch here as well, and then we'll sew them on and we'll hem the bottom and we'll be done. Now, if you want your machine to gather for you, you can up the tension a little bit, and that will help it gather for you a little bit. Sometimes I like to do that too. When you're done, you want to pull in enough to gather your skirt. I didn't put too much tension. I'm going to put more so it gathers a little bit more. All right, so the first thing I want to do is find the middle of my bodice by matching the two side seams and going to the front and back. And now that I have that middle marked, I'm going to grab my top, my skirt, my first tier, and I'm going to pull on that basting stitch to gather it. So here's my middle, and I'm going to pull to one side. I'll turn it sideways because then I know how much I need to gather it. This middle line should be right over the middle line here. So then I can even out those gathers from one side to the other. All right, so that one side is done. So now I'm going to turn it and gather this other side as well. And then I'm going to go ahead and attach them. Make sure that you're catching both layers, your liner and your outer of your bodice. Then you're attaching right sides together. So the right side of the skirt to the right side of the outer. All right, now you can go ahead and sew that on, or if you have enough clips and you want to go ahead and attach the other skirt to it right now, you can go ahead and do that. I'm going to go ahead and sew this up because I don't have that many clips, and then I'll come back and attach it and hem it, the bottom tier. as you can see, since I tightened my tension, it gathered it pretty much what I needed it to gather. So I'm just gonna attach it. Score for me. All right, friends, we are done, and this turned out super adorable. I am obsessed. Look at these sleeves. I love them so much. They are so cute. I love the tiered dress. I'm just obsessed. I know I said that already. I'm gonna say it a million more times. Go grab it. The link is in the information box below. Come sew it up with me. And then check out my other video where I sew up the square neck flutter peplum version, and then let's sew it up together. Let me know below which version you're gonna sew up first. And if you're not subscribed, please subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any of the patterns coming up or any of our sew alongs. And I'll see you all next time. I'm gonna go twirl some more. Bye. All right, I told you I would give you a little sneak peek. I heard you all, and I went with the blue binding, and I think it was perfect for that nice pop of color for this blanket. I love it. Now all I gotta do is throw it in the gentle wash to take off the marks that are still showing in some areas, and then it will be delivered to its owner. Thank you so much for sticking along. And if you're wondering what this is all about, I did a tutorial here on our channel of how to create this blanket with your sewing machine, just your regular sewing machine, a quilted cute little blanket, no pattern needed. So make sure you check it out so you can see exactly how I made this. Super cute. I love it. I hope you love it as well.